Trillions of dollars. That's how much moves globally literally every single day. It's the sprawling, completely invisible network of data. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're stepping into a hidden, incredibly high-stakes game. We're going to look closely at exactly how financial institutions and regulators translate massive, super complex legal mandates into the actual real-world nets they use to catch criminals. It's basically an intricate, non-stop battle of wits between compliance engineering teams and highly motivated bad actors. And understanding how it all works, well, that means mastering the practical patterns of financial crime detection. So let's get right into it. So think about the sheer scale of this problem for a second. How do you detect a crime that you can't actually see? Imagine the databases of a Tier 1 global bank. We're really not looking for bad guys with bags of physical cash anymore, right? Banks are legally required to hunt for enormous, abstract concepts, things like fraud, money laundering, or sanctions evasion. But here's the catch. You can't just run a simple search query for the word crime across a massive, unstructured data lake. How on earth do you query a database for human intent? Compliance teams are out there looking for needles in a global haystack of billions of daily transactions. And the crazy part is, they have to do it without knowing exactly what the needle even looks like. It is a staggering technical and operational challenge. And this is exactly where those abstract risks have to meet concrete reality. Authorities, like the Financial Action Task Force, or FATF, realized a long time ago that simply telling banks to look for crime is a complete recipe for disaster. Early compliance efforts that tried to do exactly that, they just resulted in an absolute avalanche of false positives, which effectively paralyzed the banking system with noise. To actually catch criminals without breaking the entire financial system, we need operational patterns. We need defined, specific behaviors that can be monitored, mathematically tested by automated systems, and then cleanly escalated to actual human investigators. Okay, so here is the absolute crucial point. It's understanding this foundational concept, the typology. A typology is a recognized pattern, method, or modus operandi by which financial crime is committed, attempted, or concealed. Now, this exact definition is the absolute bedrock used by major authorities like the FATF and the Financial Conduct Authority, the FCA. And it's crucial because it creates legal alignment. When the FCA, and a bank's internal compliance team are all using this exact framework, they are suddenly speaking the exact same language. It's the ultimate tool that takes a totally invisible crime and makes it visible, auditable, and most importantly, actionable. Now, it's incredibly important to distinguish between two terms you might hear tossed around interchangeably, but trust me, from a professional perspective, they are absolutely distinct. I'm talking about the typology versus the red flag. Think of the typology as the entire forest. It's the overarching criminal scheme or the broader method being used to move illicit funds. The red flag, on the other hand, that's the specific diseased tree. It's the highly distinct clue left behind in a given customer's account, maybe an anomalous transaction or a weird piece of behavior that suggests they might actually fit into that broader, overarching typology. Let's actually look at how this builds out in a concrete scenario, using a classic example pulled directly from the FATF's materials. The overarching typology here is trade-based money laundering. That's the broad method criminals are using to hide their funds. But how does a bank's automated system actually spot it in the wild? Well, they look for the red flags. Things like unusual invoice values that completely defy any market logic, or mismatched goods listed on official customs documents. Or, and this is a personal favorite, circular shipping patterns. You know, where a crate of electronics just orbits the globe on cargo ships without ever actually reaching a final retail market. It's a perfect example of how one overarching criminal scheme generates multiple distinct warning signs that a system can systematically scan for. So we've got the theory down, right? We know the difference between the broad method and the specific warning signs. But it's so critical to remember that these aren't just academic theories sitting around in a textbook somewhere. We're talking about putting typologies to work in the real world. These concepts are the actual blueprints used by compliance teams every single day. They are the frontline shields standing between a major financial institution and a multi-billion-dollar regulatory fine. Or, even worse, the reality of accidentally facilitating a major criminal enterprise. The FCA actually expects firms to operationalize these typologies in a continuous, interlocked defense lifecycle. First up, it starts with risk assessment, where a firm sits down and determines if its specific business activity or maybe a certain geography is uniquely vulnerable to a specific method. Second, that flows right into transaction monitoring, which is actually setting up the daily automated checks to catch those exact methods.
Third, we have screening and surveillance, keeping a continuous, watchful eye on holistic customer behavior over time. And finally, staff training, because honestly, no matter how amazing your algorithm is, you absolutely need human beings on the front lines to recognize when a pattern just doesn't look right. But actually applying all of this, that is fundamentally a massive engineering challenge. The FCA's updated financial crime guide makes a very explicit link between a firm's monitoring rules and its overall system design directly back to these relevant typologies. Think about the friction here for a second. You have compliance experts who intimately know the typologies, and then you have IT teams who have to actually code the transaction monitoring systems. If the typology isn't perfectly translated into system logic, if the code doesn't exactly match the red flags, the whole defense just fails. You literally cannot build an effective automated defense system unless you explicitly program it to recognize precise operational patterns. But here is where the plot really thickens, and it's exactly why this field is so incredibly challenging. We are looking at a constantly evolving threat landscape. Financial crime detection is definitely not a set it and forget it kind of situation. A key professional takeaway drawn from our sources is that typologies are highly dynamic. It's a continuous, never-ending arms race. In so many ways, modern financial criminals act a lot like highly motivated, agile startup founders. They are constantly pivoting, testing out new methods, and searching for product-market fit to exploit any tiny gap they can find in the compliance net.
So why do these methods change so rapidly? Let's break down the four main drivers of criminal evolution. First off, advancing technology gives criminals brand new tools. Think of crypto mixers that deliberately obscure the flow of funds. Second, new financial products create fresh vulnerabilities, like the massive rise of flash loans in decentralized finance. Third, shifting customer behavior provides new ways for criminals to blend right in with normal traffic, like exploiting the huge spike in mobile peer-to-peer payments. And fourth, changing market structures completely alter the global flow of money. Criminals are continuously adapting their techniques based on all four of these evolving factors.
Because of those rapidly evolving drivers, the regulatory stance is crystal clear, and it serves as a strict, non-negotiable warning to the entire financial industry. Listen to this guidance drawn straight from authorities like the FATF and the FCA. Firms cannot rely only on historic scenarios. They need to update their understanding of relevant typologies as threats change. The emphasis on historic scenarios is absolutely key here. If a bank is only auditing its algorithms against the money laundering patterns of 2015, they are completely blind to the crimes happening today. In fact, failing to update these typologies is actually one of the most common reasons banks fail their FCA exams. Which brings us to the core takeaway for this explainer. Typologies truly are the bedrock of modern financial control. Honestly, they're the Rosetta Stone of financial crime. They serve as this essential bridge between abstract law and the real world. They take those super broad legal and regulatory risks and turn them into concrete, monitorable, and practical patterns of offending. Without typologies, banks are literally just guessing, and regulators have absolutely nothing concrete to audit against. And that leaves us with a pretty provocative thought to end on today. If typologies have to constantly adapt to advancing technology and shifting markets like we've just seen, what are the typologies of tomorrow actually going to look like? As AI grows, it isn't just a tool for detection anymore. It's rapidly becoming a tool for generating brand new, hyper-complex crime typologies at machine speed. This arms race is only accelerating, and understanding these patterns is truly the only way to stay in the fight. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the patterns around you.